billions, if not trillions, looted from South Africa during state capture be recovered by civil legal means? We find out from attorney Christopher Bean, who specialises in the recovery of stolen assets and money. Welcome, Mr. Bean.
Morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Please tell us about your qualifications.
Okay, I'm an attorney admitted in South Africa in 1973, which is quite a long time ago. And I then went and qualified with a Master of Laws from University College London, and I practiced in London as well with the firm solicitors in the West End. And then I went to California and did the state bar exam there and became admitted as an attorney in the state of California, and practiced for about 5 years inside the United States. And ever since then, all my work has usually involved one or other foreign country which has those types of jurisdictions, including a lot of countries in Africa. Just to mention that the things that we're asking to do in this country are already part of laws in most African countries which have previous colonies which introduced Portuguese law, French law, English law. And what we want to do here is to introduce more advanced laws to recover money, because we're in the 18th century in South Africa.
Now, what do you want to do?
We want to be able to go overseas and recover any money that's been stolen through state capture. We would track that money. We know people who will let us know where that money is. It happens all the time. We want to have it frozen in terms of local freezing orders which apply in those different countries. And then we want to bring the money back. It's that simple.
How can you achieve that?
Okay. The trick is the use of freezing orders. Freezing orders are civil remedies. And without getting into a big dispute or a big argument or lecture about what civil remedies are versus criminal remedies, I need to explain that a civil remedy is a remedy that has a very light burden of proof. If you owe me money and I claim from you on a civil basis, the evidence I have to produce has to show that you owe me that money on a balance of probabilities. However, if I brought the same case against you for the same amount of money and I brought a criminal case against you, the burden of proof would be that I would have to show that the money belongs to me beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a huge difference. So lawyers, especially in South Africa, don't like to switch over from criminal to civil, but it's useful because information from both sides, the criminal side and the civil side, can be used to achieve your goal. Our goal is not to, we're not interested, we don't really care where the Guptas are. I have no interest, but I'm very interested in where their money is. And we can find that out. There are organizations who will give us that information, provided we are for real.
Now, why has South African authorities or the NPA not done that themselves?
That is $1 million question. I think it's embarrassment. They don't understand how attachment orders work overseas. They are not familiar with it, and they don't want to let people know that they do that. That's the best answer. The more likely answer is that there are people who just don't want this money to be recovered because it will expose them and because their money will be taken back. So we think that especially the SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, that's where a lot of money has been stolen. And there are people who are part of ANC cadres who are never going to allow this to happen. So it's an ironic situation. Before, we used to always get a mandate to recover money. Our problem was we didn't. This is in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Our problem was we didn't know where the money was. Now we know where the money is. Well, let me be more accurate. We know exactly where to find that money, and we know the people who can find it for us. We have to pay them for it, but that's fine. because the money will be it's worth paying them because it'll save an awful lot of time. But there are people who don't want us to do that because it will expose who are the beneficiaries of that money. And once that's been shown, even though it's a civil case, that information can then be transferred over to a civil side, and suddenly they're going to be had up for theft.
Now, what do you need from South Africa? You need a mandate.
Yes. Specifically, we would like a mandate from SOEs like Transnet, Denel, the IDC, Eskom, and any of them. But I think the mandate should be done confidentially. I don't want to be in the newspapers and find in the news that our name's being bandied around that we're going to go and recover this money for Eskom or for whoever. And it must be done in a way which does not require everybody in the company or the entire board of directors to know what's going on. And under company law, there are mandates that are given to certain people, like the CEO, who would be able to give a confidential mandate to recover funds to us. However, we need to find that person. We need somebody who's extremely, I won't use any rude words, who's extremely brave to be able to stand up and say, this money's been stolen, I'm going to bring it back. However, as we get close to the election, I think that might well stand them in good stead, and it at least might be a very good reason why it would be useful to keep people like that as CEOs and not fire the whole lot of them because they're just ANC supporters.
If you were able to get a mandate or mandates, what would happen then?
Okay, so let's say we get a mandate from a company which requires us to go and recover, say, I don't know, $20 million. And we would do research here on exactly what happened, what transpired, where the money came from, where it originated, what tracks it took here. And then if we discovered which country it was in, and the countries we're hoping that the money is in are places like the UK. It's unlikely to be in the US. The UK, Hong Kong is a likely target, and we've had a lot of success in Hong Kong. And even Dubai. Dubai is more difficult, but the civil route is much better in Dubai than the criminal route is, as the National Prosecuting Authority has recently found out. And there's less political interference in civil matters. So we would get a team together, and you don't just walk into court. You do your research. We would need maybe 2-3 weeks in our particular destination. Even if we know where the money is, we would contact the local criminal authorities and like Scotland Yard, Interpol, the Serious Fraud Office, the NCA, whoever the organizations are that are monitoring this particular problem. And please don't think that people don't know where money is. There are organizations who make it their livelihood to know exactly where money is, especially when it belongs to or is being transferred by PEPs. A PEP is a short name for a politically exposed person. And we have a lot of PEPs in South Africa. So we would then get a profile of who the debtor is. And then we go to court. And it's much easier to go to court overseas. You cannot do any of these things in South Africa, by the way. It's much easier to go into court because you would go ex parte. That means that you don't even tell the other side what you're going to do, which court you're going to go into. You file papers and you give them to the judge. He looks at them maybe a few hours before he talks to you, or maybe he has a day or two to think about it, but you get a response pretty quickly. And you have to show on a balance of probabilities that it is likely that this money belongs to an SOE. That's all. You don't have to go any further. You don't have to prove that it belongs to that SOE beyond a reasonable doubt, because that's unnecessary. But you do have to be quite convincing. It's a balance of probabilities and then a little bit more, just to make sure that you'll get the order. And then the other benefit is that if you don't get the order for whatever reason, you can't. Any lawyer who tells you you're going to get a 100% success rate and don't worry, you should then think about getting another lawyer. If you don't succeed, the papers are just handed back to you and you walk out the courtroom door and nobody is any the wiser. And maybe you would go to another court or the same court with another claim for a slightly different matter. And ultimately, you look for the best low-hanging fruit that you can find. Once you've got the freezing order, that's when the fun begins. Because then you have to notify the holder of the bank account that their account has been frozen. You don't notify them, the sheriff does. And they're informed that their money is frozen, and the debtor, the person who took the money, has the burden of having to prove that the money actually belongs to him or her or them or the company or whatever it is. And that's where greed comes in. Because we would be pretty sure that this money is stolen money. And we know that they will come back and try and argue that the money is really theirs. Okay, $20 million. Where did you get it from? How come you're just keeping it in this account? What about the other 20 million that you've spent already that's still leaving a balance of 20 in your account? Where did it come from? And when you ask those kind of lifestyle orientation questions and you get unsatisfactory answers, those unsatisfactory answers by the owner of the account are going to incriminate them. And you can use that, and the authorities can use that as good evidence of theft. But as I say, we're not concentrating on any criminal actions. We're not concentrating on attachments which are criminal, like asset forfeiture unit attachments. We just want to go in ex parte. Nobody knows. We get the attachment order. We freeze the money and we bring it back. Not so easy though. There's another thing.
I was just going to ask you, is it really that easy?
No, it's not. The first problem that we will have now that we never used to have is our own credibility. If people, if we go and ask the authorities in, say, the United States to please give us information relating to a particular account or a particular debtor or a PEP, they're not going to just give it to us. What they will do, though, is ask us, why do you want this information? Or if you got the money, what would you do with it? What evidence do you have as to what you would do with it? How do we know that when you repatriate that money back to South Africa, that you're not just giving it back to the crooks? That you have to have a plan that not only establishes your credibility, but establishes that this isn't going to happen again, especially with the money that we would attach. So we need the mandate we need. I've been thinking about, we originally wanted to get a mandate from the National Prosecuting Authority, but I don't think that's good enough because I don't think people believe in them anymore. I'm talking about overseas people. It's more likely that if we got a mandate from a Denel or from an IDC or ESCOM, that would actually have more credibility because we'd be able to say exactly what we're going to do with the money. Whereas I'm not so sure what would be done with the money if the NPA got it.
In how many other countries have you done this successfully?
Over a dozen. Funny enough, a lot of them are in Africa, not in African countries, West Africa. A lot in Ghana. We got the first attachment in Ghana of somebody who owed about £200,000. It wasn't, well, it's quite a lot of money. And I remember talking to the son of the person who borrowed it, and it came from the money came from an organization called Crown Agents, who are an aid organization who gives soft loans to people who live in ex-UK colonies. And I remember talking to the sons and saying, look, you have to repay this money. Otherwise, I have to do something about it. And I remember them laughing at me. And in the end, we couldn't find any money. So we attached the whole factory. It was actually an orange juice factory. We attached the whole thing. And we got paid. And it was the first Mareva injunction in those days, which it was a freezing order. It was the first one that Ghana had ever done, even though it had been on their statute books for years. And we also got the first one in Tanzania and the first one in Zambia, of all places. And but that's a completely different style of operating, because you have to. It's much more risky. And today, I think African collections are probably too risky. I'm not so sure I want to do them, but I'm quite happy to do them in Europe and Dubai and Hong Kong, because I think that's where the money is anyway.
But if you did get an opportunity to go after state capture loot, wouldn't it be a very dangerous thing to do?
Yeah, it would be, and I'm very aware of that. But I've had a good life, and the adrenaline. I can't tell you the adrenaline that's involved in these kinds of cases. I'm a bit of a junkie for that, but I'm very aware of it, and that's why I don't want to publicize it. I've had to stick my head above the parapet, because if nobody no director or CEO of these companies has approached us, I've had difficulty with Minister Gordon, who every time we wrote him a letter, he ducked and dived. And he even had a PA who I know was subsequently fired because she didn't have the right qualifications. But anyway, she successfully made sure that the correspondence I was writing directly to Minister Gordon didn't get to him. And he did what I think regarding the Chinese North-South rail cases, he ultimately went off to China the other day. I saw it, and he was just going there with his begging bowl, whereas he could have actually helped us to recover the money, and we wouldn't have needed to beg for money or beg for anything at all. That's what I find very irritating. We've given away everything, and we could have been quite a rich country.
How much money do you think is out there that could be recovered? An estimate?
Well, the estimate I'm working on is one that was given to me by Paul Hoffman, and I believe it's on Paul Hoffman of Accountability Now, and I believe it's already with you. It's on one of your business reports, and the estimate is about 2 trillion rands, 2 to 3 trillion rands. But let's just say 2 trillion rands, which is a heck of a lot of money. And people say, well, the money's all spent. But if you just do some simple mathematics and you only get 10% of 2 trillion rands, you've actually got 200 billion instead, which is also a fantastic amount of money that we need back here. So they can't spend it all. It's very difficult when you've got that kind of money to spend it without getting noticed. And so, of course, I'm not saying it hasn't been spent. I mean, the Guptas are trying their best, I'm sure, and probably quite successful at it. But I still think it's worthwhile having a go, even at this late stage. And as long as we get cooperation from the organizations that know where the money is, and there's more than one of those. And if you remember from the Zondo Commission, there was a man there called Paul Holden from a company called Shadow World Investigations. They know exactly where all the money has gone and in which accounts it is, to the cent. So that's a massive advantage. And I just can't for the life of me figure out why the NPA haven't even thought about using it to go and recover the money. It's that simple. And I'm basically putting a challenge down to these CEOs. Please have the cojones to stand up and have a conversation with us and see if we can help recover the money that that belongs to this country so that we can all benefit.
Thank you. That was Attorney Christopher Bean telling Biz News how state capture loot can be recovered by civil legal means if only the CEOs of those SOEs are prepared to give them a mandate. Thank you, Mr. Bean.
Thank you very much.